It's a Veterans Day theme tonight, but it's a challenge when it comes to veterans that we've got to fix. The homeless issue in the veteran community is just a national embarrassment, and there's a little bit of a controversy this week here in Rhode Island about definitions of homelessness for veterans and a little bit of a squabble inside the homeless community or the advocacy for homeless people, and we're going to tackle that this evening. All right, so stand by for that. How are you? Nice to have you on this midday Wednesday into my state of mind. I always want to hear about yours, of course, and there's a way to do that. Let us go to the rundown and take a look at some of the things that are happening, thoughts that are on my mind, and then we'll get into this important conversation tonight. Yeah, it's Veterans Day, and I will tell you, we ought to have a comprehensive discussion on veterans on a more, it's like Christmas, you know, Jesus is all year round, you know, veterans issues are all year round. Ceremonies today are important. I hope that you were able to thank a veteran today. That's important. I'm not going to make speeches to you about your patriotism and how you deal with veterans. It's just, it's good to remind each other that it's important to respect their sacrifice and to then reward them for their sacrifice if they make it back alive, you know, whether they're in combat or not. And these days, it's just not good. The headline, New York Times, of course, the president visits. And of course, you know, he's got a theme today about hiring a vet.
Our veterans will tell you themselves, they may have put away their uniforms, but they're not finished serving their country. And that includes our wounded warriors who tell me that as soon as they can, they want to serve their country again. They're exactly the kind of people we need to keep America competitive in the 21st century. That's why more and more companies are hiring veterans. Not out of charity, not out of patriotism or some moral obligation, although they do have those obligations, but because they know it's good for their bottom line. Every day our veterans help keep America strong.
You know, I don't know what's going on with the dynamic of hiring veterans in this country. Perhaps Erik Wallin, my guest, will be able to talk about that as well here this evening. He's from Operation Stand Down, and he's in the middle of this challenge for the right definitions and right advocacy for homeless veterans. But I don't know, is there discrimination out there? Are they not properly qualified because they don't have the right training? The president says there's 1.5 million new veteran hires in the last year, and that's a big to do. I don't have a grip on it. I'm pretty confident around here when I've got a grip on something. I don't. Maybe you do. Let me know what you think about that, and we'll do more programming about it. Stay tuned for conversations regarding that. All right. In the next thought process here, it seems like it was a smoother debate last night. Having watched the Fox Business Network, they got 10 million viewers, which is a world record for them, a little less than the CNBC debate. There's been a falling off audience, but the platforms have been diminished because the stations, the networks, have not been as popular. Here's a summary. First, the headline from the USA Today, and then the summary of the event.
I want a strong national defense, but I don't want us to be bankrupt.
I know that Rand is a committed isolationist. I'm not.
The top 8 candidates taking the stage Tuesday night in Milwaukee for the main debate, which focused primarily on the economy. But some of the biggest fireworks coming during a discussion on immigration.
Come on, folks. We all know you can't pick them up and ship them back across the border. It's a silly argument.
All I can say is you're lucky in Ohio that you struck oil. That's for one thing.
Political analysts weighing in this morning, giving high marks to several candidates.
Cruz, Rubio, both had very good nights, but I also put Fiorina in the mix, and let's throw some love to Rand Paul.
But Jeb Bush, whose campaign has struggled in recent weeks, getting mixed reviews.
I thought Jeb Bush had a much better night, but he didn't have a great one-liner until the very end when he indirectly called Trump the agitator-in-chief.
Meantime, Ben Carson telling Fox he's happy with his debate performance.
I feel good about it. I feel good about the answers that I was able to give. I would have loved to have gone into more depth.
You know, whether you score a one-liner or not shouldn't determine whether you ought to be the President of the United States. And I think that resonates with most of us, which is why even on the phone lines on WPRO, where you can listen to the radio show, of course, weekdays noon to 3, pretty quiet in reaction to last night's debate. Not a lot of movement, kind of status quo, the fourth of, 6 Republican debates, and as we head toward the holidays, I think people are going to start to get more or less even-keeled and maybe even disinterested in this until after the holidays kick back up. We'll see. The feds engage on 38. Now remember, the U.S. Attorney has told us and everybody else in the media that they've had no interest in the 38 Studio saga because they saw no federal connection. Well, here's the headline on the front page today. The state representative and chairperson of the House Oversight Committee, Karen McBeth, has made an inquiry and a request to the Security and Exchange Commission for a federal investigation into 38 Studios. And we know that, A, by reading the paper, and B, by watching Dan York's State of Mind, because she told us that here first last night.
Done so far is once I have the document, I've contacted the SEC and spoke with it through emails and then spoke to them on the phone today with my concerns, and they're going to follow up, and I have a formal letter that I'm signing this evening that's going to be sent to them with my concerns here, and then we've requested all the documents from Brookline Bancorp regarding this, the documents of the loans.
Okay. In 10 seconds, what does it smell like to you?
Dirty.
Dan, get your hand out of the camera. That's just not very polite. Anyway, this is about, long story short, it's about Bank Rhode Island that lent money to Mr. Corso, one of the players in the 38 Studios, for purposes of obtaining tax credits from state government. He had no shot of getting those tax credits legitimately because the tax credits were being obtained on behalf of 38 Studios, which is an out-of-state company. However, it was in the mix in terms of the whole finance plan. The problem is that, guess what? Then Governor Lincoln Chafee, one of the smarter things he ever did was stop the tax credit issuance, which then caused that to be the last straw for 38 Studios, and they went under. The holding company that bought Bank Rhode Island filed an SEC document, the one Karen McBeth is referring to there in the video, to say, hey, listen, it's because of the bankruptcy this thing got messy. No, it's because the tax credits were the goal, and they should never have been obtained. And when they couldn't be obtained, the bankruptcy followed. And so it's more than just a semantical conversation. And as Irene was watching the show last night, said, that's a pretty interesting conversation. Thank you, Irene. You're right. Stay tuned. All right. Officer fired for no good reason unless, well, I mean, obviously what he said and had been saying is inappropriate. The headline is clear, and the police commissioner is even more clear.
A 21-year veteran of the Providence Police Department has been fired. David Marchand was a sergeant on the force.
Have you spoken to the sergeant? If so, what did you say?
No, I have not spoken to David Marchand. He's no longer deserving to be called the rank of sergeant. He's no longer a Providence police officer. He's David Marchand.
An officer's Bill of Rights hearing upheld the firing decision. Documents from the hearing show Marchand is accused of racially charged comments to a black Providence police officer last December. That's when the two officers responded to the call of a suspicious package. Marchand was questioned after protocols with the package were not followed. According to the documents, Marchand responded, "How I handled it was okay because I had the one black officer open the package." He's also accused of saying if the officer got sick from opening the package, it wouldn't be a big deal because, quote, he's a black guy anyway. The black officer says he was hurt and disgusted.
I applaud him for the courage of both, cooperating and telling us what the impact of those words were to him.
We called Marchand's attorney, but we haven't heard back. He defended Marchand in the hearing, saying, what it is, it's a cop-to-cop joke, kind of like shop talk.
It's kind of locker room-ish, or perhaps it's actually the way the guy carries himself, and he's more than welcome to come here, seriously, and explain his whole situation. But I will tell you, it's a new day. It's a new day. Even on a tough job like law enforcement, it's not funny anymore. It's just not funny anymore. Never mind if it was meant to actually hurt and inflict pain. It's not unlike sexual harassment in the office. You know, what you think is funny, and you know the remarks you're making about bada bing, bada boom, and all of a sudden, ha ha ha. The next thing you know, you find someone who's been offended, psychologically damaged, and guess what? You're out the door. It's not about being politically correct. It's just about being smart. And it's a new day. Respectful, maybe, is the word we're looking for. Unbelievable. Did you see this number? I think it's all because of Kev. Headline, Budweiser makes Anheuser-Busch in beverage, the Budweiser maker, Anheuser-Busch, buys their competitor for $107 billion. Now, so what is it going to be? Less filling, tastes great, Budweiser, less filling, tastes great is light beer, right?
Miller Lite.
Miller Lite. And what's Budweiser? The king of beers. So it's going to be the king of beers that is less filling and tastes great? I don't know. But I know Kev's had something to do with that market share. And your hosts, I'm in the wrong business. Your state of mind is important. 228-1886. Leave us a voicemail. Email me. Tweet. Facebook post, just like Irene did. When we come back, Erik Wallin, Operation Stand Down, Rhode Island. Important conversation on this Veterans Day. Stay with us. All right, on this show we usually post our headlines, but I was walking in and talked to Erik before the show and didn't realize that this headline is actually inspiring the headline that caused us to bring him in. So I'll just throw this to you here. Maybe you can see that. Oh, there you go. There you go. Rhode Island on track to end homelessness for vets. That was the headline that then caused this headline. The veterans group Operation Stand Down leaves the Homeless Coalition. Now you think to yourself, wait a second, they just had some good news and a good headline. What's going on? So there's a little bit of a controversy here. Erik Wallin, thank you for your service to the country, by the way.
Well, thank you very much.
You're a former captain in the U.S. Air Force, correct?
I was, yes.
And you, of course, worked for the Attorney General's office as a special prosecutor, or special assistant prosecutor, correct?
Correct.
And ran for Attorney General.
Yes.
And I wish you had succeeded. And now, for the last 4 years, you've been the boss of Operation Stand Down Rhode Island. Before we get into the controversy on the homelessness issue, tell everybody what Operation Stand Down Rhode Island is.
Well, Operation Stand Down has, for the last 23 years, been the leading and the largest provider of supportive services for veterans. We've been very focused on the homeless issue, both in housing homeless veterans as well as preventing it. And now we own and operate over 64 units of housing for low-income and disabled veterans. We service thousands of veterans every single year. And we do that in providing both security deposits and rent in a temporary way to get veterans off the street and into housing, by paying rental arrearages for veterans to keep them from becoming homeless. And then the key element, of course, is getting to the issue that got them into a situation of being homeless. So we'll work to, in our employment and training program, to get them into jobs that are meaningful and substantive, to work through the issues, whether it's substance abuse or mental health that might have caused them to become homeless. So it's a wraparound agency that helps veterans here in Rhode Island.
You seem like you love your work.
I'm passionate about it, Dan.
Why?
Well, first of all, these are my brothers and sisters. Veterans have to take care of veterans. I have a great team that works with me. My staff is all former veterans, current military members in the Guard, as well as military family members. And to have that opportunity to take a veteran who is sleeping in a car, or is going from their brother's couch to their sister's couch to a friend's couch until they wear out their welcome, and now is, sleeping in an abandoned building, and be able to put them in an apartment and then work on those issues that brought them to that point and restore that dignity that they once had while wearing the uniform. It's just the most rewarding thing, and it's the right and just thing to do in this country.
So you're not just a bureaucrat pushing paper with this organization. You have a personal relationship, and your staff. How big's your staff?
We have 15.
You have 15. It's a personal relationship with every veteran that you're trying to serve out there, correct?
Absolutely. And you know, Dan, we do an event called Stand Down Weekend. We set up a military tent-style city up in Cumberland. We bring in every federal and state resource there is, including the VA, Thunder Mist Dental. We provide 3,000 meals. We have the courts there. And the thing I love most about working at Operation Stand Down is of that weekend, most people will see me jumping in and out of a trailer and throwing cots and blankets, and then at the next minute trying to organize the court for the veterans to go through before the judges and the traffic tribunal. So it's wonderful. It's a fabulous way to work and to give back to the community.
So what happened? You saw this headline, Rhode Island on track to end homelessness for vets. It caused you concern, and then you pulled out of the Coalition for the Homeless. What happened?
Well, this is not a quick or rash decision. We have worked very closely with the Coalition, and the Coalition is an advocacy group. They do not own any housing. They don't put veterans into housing. In fact, there is a kind of a slick Madison Avenue style name to this campaign called 016. And it comes from the president promising 5 years ago that we would end veteran homelessness by January 1st of 2016.
So there'd be no homeless vets by that year?
Correct.
Checking my calendar, but we're close.
We're close. And there are literally tens of thousands of homeless veterans still on the streets. Not necessarily all here in Rhode Island by any means. But the issue with the headline was this. We have worked with the Coalition. We have, in fact, my Director of Supportive Services, the retired State Command Sergeant Major John McDonough, has been the chairman of the Veterans Subcommittee of the entity that has been directing this whole process of placing veterans. But their claim that they have housed or will house all of the homeless veterans in the state of Rhode Island couldn't be more untrue. What they have and should be saying is that they have and will make a significant dent and virtually house most of the chronically homeless veterans. So why is it a big deal? It's a big deal because chronically homeless veteran is a legal term according to the federal government. So you have to be homeless for 12 consecutive months or have 4 incidents of homelessness within 3 years. Why is that concerning? It's concerning because it leaves out a veteran who comes home from Iraq or Afghanistan, or maybe has been home for a couple of years, struggling with PTSD, and ends up out on the street for 6 or 7 months. That veteran doesn't count. It's not being included in this.
Okay. So what's the remedy for what you know what, we'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about what's the remedy. Is it about getting everybody on the same page, the right definition, or just making sure that we get to everybody? Seems to me the latter is more important. Stay with us. All right, so I think it's important that we talk to Erik about what's most important. You were upset. Well, I don't want to use the word. You were not happy with the Rhode Island on track to end homelessness for vets headline that appeared in the paper last week, which caused you to say, all right, we're out of this homeless coalition because you guys are misrepresenting the data and the truth. It's more or less what I think I hear from you, correct?
It's an element of that they are not, they're overstating what has been accomplished significantly.
And they, again, is the Rhode Island Coalition for Homeless.
Correct. Of which we were a member.
Yeah. What's more important, that you end up coming back into membership with the Homeless Coalition here in Rhode Island, or that we just get every veteran taken care of? Duh, it's the last one.
Get every veteran taken care of.
So the work is ongoing.
It is never ending, and
what was the problem with this notion that homelessness for vets is just about solved? That seems to be a problem. What's the problem?
I think it's as dangerous as hanging a banner on the aircraft carrier that said mission accomplished back in 2003 when George Bush landed on it. And what the concern is that it creates a level of complacency. If I tell you that I have cured a deadly disease, and you read that in the newspaper, and then it's repeated in other media type formats, and then someone comes to you and says, look, we really need your help, this is a serious issue, But you're saying, wait, I just read, it's completely solved. Not only will the public lose interest in it, businesses, corporations that are supporting efforts to end veteran homelessness, like Home Depot and Walmart, as well as, quite frankly, a very important partner, the federal government. Our congressmen and senators do advocate here in Rhode Island very well on these issues. But if they're going to their colleagues and their colleagues are saying, but hey, we just read Rhode Island solved the problem.
Well, let me ask you this. Based on your good work, do you think there will be a day when the homeless issue is solved for veterans and we will be in capacity to be able to train, hire, house? Yes?
I think that that is possible, although veterans, when you house a veteran, another veteran is going to become homeless at some point. The question is, how quickly do you respond? And this is really where we are not far apart with the coalition. It's just, you make this statement that you've ended it when it really hasn't. So, for example...
Well, let me ask you, is it important to get back on track with the Rhode Island Coalition? I mean, by the way, Jim Reisig from the coalition, just prior to show time, I learned it, will join me tomorrow to kind of respond to this and to talk about the condition of homelessness, which is more than just veterans, of course. And, they're kind of on a macro attack basis. But it seems to me that you guys ought to get back on the same page and negotiate a better, I don't know, press release, public statement, mantra, whatever, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, and that would be the best way to go, and we tried to communicate that initially. And look, this
what
is
happened?
They were stuck on this idea that they were going to be able to say that they had succeeded in the 016 campaign. And if you're going to define homelessness solely on chronic, meaning you've got to be homeless for 12 months or have these 4 incidents of homelessness within 3 years, then maybe they can say they've made some progress and they may be close. But that doesn't take account really the hundreds of veterans that we serve every year who are going in and out of homelessness.
But it seems to me, inside the Coalition for the Homeless, it is your organization that's actually working with the veterans.
We've been...
So you are the only, credible caliber for this, correct?
Well, we have been on this mission for 23 years. The Coalition, while they have been involved in some way, it has not been their focus but for the last 11 months. So we know what the issue is.
Because of this presidential charge?
Correct.
I get you.
And I think it's great. It's good to have a campaign that focuses the attention on homelessness because there has been a tremendous amount of resources.
All right. You know what? We're going to talk to Mr. Reisig tomorrow and get his perspective. And hopefully, I certainly don't want to use the veterans as a political ping pong ball here. That is exactly what we don't want to do. Give me 30 seconds, as if you can do it in 30 seconds. On the hiring dynamics of veterans today, the president's pushing a hire vet. Are we doing enough? Is it a discrimination environment? What's going on out there?
It's a number of issues. First of all, it's very difficult a lot of times for businesses to understand what the skills are that the veterans are bringing to them, in part because the veterans don't communicate it well. Operation Stand Downs has an employment and training program that last year helped 200 veterans get jobs, full-time permanent jobs. That's part of it. There is beginning to be a development of this sense of, are they okay when they come back? Because we've heard so much about post-traumatic stress disorder, so that's a concern. But in Rhode Island, you know, some of the numbers that we may have twice the unemployment rate for veterans than we do for the average unemployment rate.
All right, well, you know what? That's a conversation that deserves more attention. Will you come back when all this dust settles and we'll talk about that constructive conversation?
Dan, I'm happy to come back anytime to talk about the challenges of our veterans.
All right, good work. Good to see you. Thank you. Last word when we come back. Stay with us. The last thing we want to do is make veterans a political football, like I said last segment, but it's also important to get to the bottom of this conversation. So Jim Reisig from the Coalition for the Homeless, who's done some really good work for a long time in this state as well, will join me tomorrow to respond to Mr. Wallin, and then maybe we can get them together next week and get on the same page. More importantly, we need to figure out how we can hire more veterans. That's the big mission. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow at noon on WPRO. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.